The idea that the United States is being taken advantage by all these other countries is a delusion. There is no evidence whatsoever.
That is
and it
no,
betrays
that is
misunderstanding how trade
100%
works.
happening.
I know you can say
and,
that,
and
you
like I
feel
said,
that
there's
way, but it doesn't make any
Americans
sense.
here who are just encouraging that by starting companies overseas and just taking advantage of the system. Americans just
Why is starting a country
dude.
overseas isn't necessarily a bad thing, is it?
The specific numbers people could lie about.
Yeah,
I've
but you'll see it
debated
at the
plenty
store.
of
I mean,
Globers. I know that people
There are people now that are
lie
looking
with
at their
numbers, right?
at the stuff that they're paying for, and it is starting to go up. There are people that are having to put 10-15% additional charges to cover the tariffs.
That's
See, Trump himself can't be elected again, but
So why would we trust him with the levers on our
Because
economy?
we voted for him. He's the chief executive, right?
We
It's
didn't
his
vote
call.
for it to give him unilateral control of the
That is-
economy.
but that is just how the mechanic currently works. That
because he's breaking the law. Yes,
he is not breaking.
He's breaking the law. Of
what
course.
law is he breaking?
My name is Stephen Bonnell. I'm known online as Destiny, and I'm here to debate 7 Trump supporters today. My first prompt today is that I think that the tariff regime that Trump has installed has already been catastrophic for the United States, and I think it will continue to be catastrophic for the United States, even if he doesn't go through with it. I think that the goals of the tariffs in general are contradictory. I don't think that you can both work out good trade deals where we can import stuff from other nations and protect domestic manufacturing. It seems like there's a lot of tension between a lot of the things that he wants to do with these tariffs. And I think that the tariffs undermine already established trade policies that we had with other countries, namely the trade deal that we had with Mexico and Canada that Trump had worked out in his first administration. And I think it creates a level of instability in this country that makes it impossible for large-scale capital expenditure because you are completely and totally in the dark about what the tariffs will look like in the future. So it discourages people from investing in long-term manufacturing here. So even if you were in favor of any of the stated goals of the tariffs, I don't know if they accomplish any of them.
Okay, so Destiny, you say the tariffs are bad, right? Okay, why did the Democrats, like Biden, totally continue them and even added more of them on China, especially? Sure, there's stuff going on with Taiwan, but the Democrats did not take any of the tariffs away. They added to the tariffs, and the Democrats, they govern better, right? So if that's one of the policies they get, then the tariffs are actually good for Americans.
So I think
the Democrats did it, right?
Well, so I think there's two separate
Democrats
things.
govern better. Yeah.
But I agree, they do govern better. So I think there's two separate things going on. So I think, number one, I don't think that tariffs are necessarily bad in all circumstances. Okay. I think as econ policy, as Trump is using them, they're generally bad. And I think when they're literally across the entire board, I think they're also bad. I think that targeted towards particular countries or sectors, they can be okay. So I believe, for instance, that I think Biden raised them against, I think, electric vehicles.
Yeah, tariffs.
But tariffs alone, I don't
Drill,
think
baby,
are,
drill.
Well, I don't think tariffs alone are enough to affect your ideal economic outcome because after you tariff a country, they can also ship to other countries, and there are other people that can ship from there to your country, or you could just continue to import from other countries.
That's true, but they have to deal with the U.S. because we're number one. They just have to.
Sure,
in
but I'm saying
many instances, they just have to. They can't not do that. And even then,
well, there are other consumers.
There's other workworkarounds to probably make them.
There are other consumers on the planet.
Because the U.S. has just been undermined a lot in these instances.
I don't
which
think
is
that's
also
true.
why the European Union recently they came to the table. They even said the European Union lady, she barely said anything at this press conference. But what she did say was that it's been totally unfair to the U.S. and that these tariffs made things like fair.
Sure.
Just
So
fair,
okay, wait.
yeah.
So just on the first
At
point.
least things should be fair, right?
Yeah, I agree, but I don't even know
Yeah.
if Trump knows what fair means right now.
No, but the European
Union
lady
I understand.
said that,
We're not
and
even
Trump was the
there
one who
yet.
brought her
I'm
to
trying to
the
explain the
table.
difference between Biden's approach to the tariffs versus Trump's approach.
Yeah,
So Biden did continue some. He did some more targeted ones on China. We can talk about whether or not that's good or bad, but the most important part was he paired those tariffs with domestic policy, with the CHIPS Act, to also incentivize more manufacturing and more capital investment in domestic industry in the United States in a way that's a little bit more reliable and long-term than just a tariff that could come and go every 4 years depending upon the whims of the president. That was one thing. And then the second thing is also, it's easy to put a tariff on. It's hard to take a tariff off. If you put a tariff on a country, they're probably going to retaliate, which China has.
No, but like I said, China, that's an ongoing
It's an ongoing thing. But I'm just saying,
but
just
that's
real
why
quick,
the
if you-
Democrats added tariffs to it.
If you tariff a country and then they tariff you back, that's an easy thing that both sides can do. Escalation.
He was winning the trade war with China beforehand. The Democrats,
don't think so.
The Democrats added to it. They agreed with that because they continued those policies. And I'd say he should add to the policies in that regard. And just on that first point,
wait, real quick. We get there. I'm just saying.
He brought the Taiwan
Sure.
semiconductors to America.
We're not
That's
making those semiconductors
30% of the total semiconductor production in the world.
That's absolutely not happened yet.
No,
but
he's bringing that in. These things don't happen overnight.
Well, they don't. They don't happen in 4 years either. But what I was saying is that also, like, to take a tariff down requires some bilateral negotiation for both of you guys to remove tariffs, because it's unlikely if you just take yours down that the other side will respond in kind. So once tariffs are up, it's easy to keep them. It's hard to take them down.
Why didn't the European Union did? They capitulated.
Well, we don't know that yet. We don't have
They did. They just came to the table very recently.
They
This was
said
like
that,
last
but we
week.
don't have an actual deal yet. We just have like words so far. Like we also had words with Japan. We've also had words with Vietnam. We had words with the UK, but we don't have actual solid deals.
Okay,
yet.
but they're still coming to the table and they're signaling that they're going to go along with these deals that generally should be better, should benefit the U.S. But I agree that these policies could do more for Americans domestically, actually help out Americans start families here instead of helping China or Israel or just all these countries.
I mean, it's possible. So I mean,
like, what did you think of the freaking the U.S. Mexico Canada thing? You said you supported that with Trump in the beginning,
the
right?
trade deal, yeah. I mean, it's basically an expansion of NAFTA, right?
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm curious about, why do you think that we were losing in trade?
Because our leaders have completely sold us out to the rest of the country, to the rest of the world, and they don't want to help out Americans.
So who do you think is
Trump's at least starting the trend where that needs to start helping people who live here. I know a lot of these policies help out these like big companies that he has connections to, and that needs to stop. So he needs to start helping out Americans.
Not even that far along. I'm just thinking like,
this is the step in the right direction.
Who do we feel like we were losing out to?
The rest of the world. European Union even said that it was completely one-sided, the trade deals before, and he completely redid NAFTA, right?
How is it? Well, he didn't completely redo it. It was slightly modified. How do we feel like the rest of the world was beating us? Does it seem possible that the United States was literally losing to the rest of the world?
Yeah,
but we still have
taxpayer
like the
dollars
best economy
go to aid for like dumb stuff in these other countries that should be going here, just across the board, not just for
Okay, so I want to take a step back and I just want to look at the broad picture. So in the 4 years under Biden, the USD is like the strongest it ever has been. The American consumer is the strongest it ever has been. Compared to the rest of the like economically developed countries on the planet, we were doing better on inflation. Our economy growth has been huge. We still lead the world in several industries. I don't understand where this idea comes from.
That was because of Trump's policies enacted during his previous term that Biden profited off of.
I think that
These things don't happen overnight,
let's assume that was true. Trump didn't do all of the tariffs in his first 4 years.
So the economy was pretty good under Trump. But then you would say, oh, that's because of the economy that he inherited from Obama. Huh?
Well, I mean, he inherited a decent economy from Obama, and I don't think he did anything to.
But Trump can't like bestow a good economy to Biden.
Well, he didn't hurt the economy. I don't think he did.
Yeah, and
anything
like I said, Biden continued a lot of these policies.
Sure, but I'm just saying that like when we look at the rest of the world, okay, ignore U.S. presidents or whatever. I'm just saying that it feels like I don't think anybody else on the planet looks at the United States and goes, "Wow, look at that sucker country that we're all taking advantage of." I think that we still have.
Yes, they do.
Which
India for sure.
Do you think
looks at that?
Do you think
They're
that the
very
average
arrogant
Indian
in the way that they take advantage, and that they don't say that, but that general sentiment
sure, but like
is
if you think
the
mindset
in what ways for a lot of immigrants.
In what ways is India like better than the United States?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that they feel very entitled to taking advantage of, like they say, yeah, we're gonna go sucker these people. A lot of these scams, not just in India and other East Asian countries, a lot of these other countries they just come here to scam, or they take advantage of our system that allows them to scam overseas. A lot of people here, what they do is that they start companies overseas to do it cheaper, just so they could profit, but that doesn't really help Americans.
What would you have to see, or what would change your mind to think that other countries weren't scamming us, or what would have to change for you to feel like we weren't being scammed by other countries?
What would have to change? That's a good question. A lot would have to change.
Because India is not doing better probably in almost any way versus the United States. Neither any of the other countries are supposedly scamming us. I feel like the U.S. is a really good deal with the rest of the world in that we have the global reserve currency. We are the head of like basically all of the military alliances.
Yeah, people want to come and take advantage because there's a lot to take advantage of. Is it
possible that somebody could come here to take advantage of something, but both of us benefit? Is that possible? Like couldn't people come to the U.S. to take advantage of something, but both of us are getting something we want? Like when I go to
just come take advantage. Yeah, it's fine. It's like I don't think that's a good thing to be promoting.
So like if I go to Starbucks,
that mentality,
like
it's
$4
just come take advantage. Yeah, it's fine because a lot of Americans are struggling, dude, hardcore. So I think at the present moment, last couple decades maybe. No, that's just we got to take care of Americans. It's we can't be doing that because A lot
I
of
understand we
Americans
can do that,
can't
but I don't know what
afford to
Americans-
just have people like take advantage.
Sure. Who do you
People
think-
are struggling out here, paycheck to paycheck. Normal families, dude. Dude, like I live around here. It freaking it sucks sometimes.
Do you think
the
that
quality of
people in
life
other
out here.
countries like aren't struggling, or who do you think is like what other countries are taking advantage of us so much?
So
none
it's
of
just
them
to
are?
like bring everything down is the idea.
Well, it's not bringing everything down. It's that the idea that the United States is being taken advantage by all these other countries is a delusion. There is no evidence whatsoever.
That
for
is
and it
no,
betrays
that
a
is
misunderstanding of how trade
100%
works.
happening.
I know you can say
and,
that,
and
you
like
can
I
feel
said,
that
there's
way, but it doesn't make any
Americans
sense.
here who are just encouraging that by like starting companies overseas and just taking advantage of the system. Americans like just like
Why is starting a country
dude.
overseas isn't necessarily a bad thing, is it?
It's not necessarily a bad thing, but just the general idea that just these like nationalistic policies, I guess you could call them, that would help Americans that aren't geared towards Americans. A lot of other countries have
What do you think
these
is like
types
a bad
of policies.
policy that hurts Americans that also benefits like
That
trade?
just make open borders, for example, that just brings people here,
Well, so I'm just saying
undercutting
economic policy,
wages.
economic policy, like economic trade policy. What do you think was
Neither of us
hurting-
are economists. Like everyone can see that these immigrants are coming over here to take people's jobs. That's just the bottom
Why
line.
is unemployment still below 5%?
Okay, the unemployment number, that is total crap. Can I respond to that? Like that's just total crap. The freaking like unemployment numbers. Like what are you trying to say with freaking unemployment right
I'm
now?
saying that most people that want jobs have jobs right now. The unemployment is still considered pretty good.
No, there's a lot of people that want jobs, but they can't get jobs because a lot of this H-1B visa stuff that Trump is he's like flirting with that, and we don't want him flirting with
fully
that because it
supports it,
doesn't
right? He fully
help
supports it
Americans.
now,
There's,
right? That's
there was
right.
a big discussion about that on like Twitter and just the general like sphere that we're in about that because that just hurts Americans. And he just needs to like stop doing that. And man, what was I gonna say about the unemployment? Like that's what adds to the unemployment. These freaking Indians just taking people's jobs. For one
think
example,
there's only, like,
there's
a
a
limited-
lot of
do you think there's
people
only a
who come
limited number
over
of
here
jobs?
and take advantage.
Okay.
Yeah. No, but the unemployment numbers are like they just cook them, dude.
They're not cooked at all.
No,
I hate to do it.
Once you
I
stop, once you
appreciate
stop,
it, but we have to. Forgive me for doing it, but just to keep things moving.
Well, I just want to say up front first is we are unlikely to agree on any statistics or any history or anything like that from your exchange just earlier. Frankly, none of what you said is substantiatable from any information, data, research, resources I have. And I'm sure my Twitter feed doesn't look like your Twitter feed. Let's forget all of that because we're not doing a fact-finding show. We don't have computers here. We don't have documents to prove one thing or another.
Can I ask? I'm just curious. How do you decide what numbers to trust?
Well, that's why I want to avoid this discussion because we don't have numbers to.
Well, I'm just saying, like
present
in general, like if you see Kyle Kalinske or Destiny or Charlie Kirk or Trump, if somebody says numbers, how do you decide, like, oh, I think that number is credible or that number is not credible? Like,
By looking at the numbers, I've done some of my own research when I found interest in it or I wanted to. I've seen evidence of things differently than how other people see it. Just from my own life or from going to the store and seeing it's like, oh, well, the price of that went up and down. Well, yes, that's exactly what I expected from what was going on in the news or data that I've come across. So I would say there's no one source, there's no one way, but I would say most of what I internalize critically, but you would probably say that about the information you internalize. So I'm not really interested in throwing facts or figures unless we can actually have physical facts and figures. But on the topic of tariffs, what is a fair tariff? Should we have tariffs? I mean, that's, I think, a question I need to know what your opinion is to really debate tariffs.
I mean, I would say in general, no. When I look at trade between two countries, there's a concept underpinning trade called comparative advantage, that some economies might be better at creating certain goods or services than other economies. If you can make it better than the other guy can make it per hour of labor, then you let the other guy make it, and then you focus on what you're good at. In a household, for instance, maybe a wife is good at doing home caring duties, and maybe a husband is good at doing office duties. If you switch these people around, you just create a worse situation for everybody, right? So when I think about tariffs, I'm generally thinking, I guess my roots are libertarianish. 20 years ago, I'm thinking more free trade. Like as long as another country can create something better for us and they're not engaged in deceptive or harmful trade practices, which is a thing you could talk about, then I would say generally there should be no tariffs. Yeah.
So now, in the case of a country or an economy that definitely has a stronger advantage one way or another, if that is a problem for your local economy, is applying a tariff fair, something to help reduce the input to your country that impacts what you're able to produce locally.
Yeah, I think you can have a conversation about like things that can hurt your local economies, and I think it's fair to have a conversation about that. Although very broadly, doing tariffs is generally not the way to do this. I would say like a really great example of a way to engage in some form of protectionism could be found in Trump's first term when he expanded on the U.S., Mexico, Canada trade agreement. One of the numbers that we heard a lot recently was Canada's 145% tariff on dairy or whatever. So
Yeah.
that wasn't really true. What it was is if Canada's own exporters, if their own local producers weren't able to sell enough in their country and they were importing too much, then those tariffs would start to kick in to protect their domestic manufacturing. Well, I say manufacturing, but it was their domestic animal agriculture sector for that. So, like, in
Conditional,
that- yeah.
conditional, but a tariff nonetheless.
Well, yeah, but I mean, conditional, but a tariff nonetheless is important. The conditionality part, I think, is important because broad tariffs are, I think, incredibly destructive. But like specific protectionist things like that could make sense, right?
Yeah, but still, it's a tariff. Conditional though it is, they've calculated, well, if we can't do at least this much business, it's going to be detrimental for our country. So we need to slow down or stem the.
I
external
understand when you
business.
say, and it's a tariff, but like, would you be okay with somebody stabbing you?
That's completely unrelated. We're talking
It is
about buying
unrelated.
milk.
No, I understand, but I'm saying if somebody were to stab you, generally we're not okay with that, right?
No, but
if
that's-
somebody was like performing surgery on you, it's probably okay, but they're still stabbing you. But it's very, 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 very different, right?
That's not a
equivalence?
sincere argument. That's a completely insincere argument.
Okay.
You can't have a discussion. You're being evasive about whether or not a tariff is fair, and you're trying to throw conditions into it. And then when I've got you painted into the corner of yes, it's fair with conditions, then you're talking about surgery. It's unrelated. If there's a tariff on surgery, that would be in topic, but there isn't a tariff on surgery.
Well, I'm just saying that things can be okay with conditions, but not okay, like just.
Dairy farming isn't surgery.
Okay, so I
I feel
understand
like
what you're
I'm
saying.
mentally flushed.
So surgery isn't the same thing as tariffs. I'm just saying that like conditionally some things are okay, but applied very broadly, it's like disastrous. So I think like conditionally tariffs, like almost all forms of policy can be okay in certain conditions, but applied broadly, they could be really bad, I think. So that's my position on tariffs, yeah.
Okay. But that's not necessarily the case. Most tariffs are either conditional or on certain market segments. So lots of the tariffs overseas, especially to China, Taiwan, whatever, from my understanding, because I don't have the facts sitting in front of me right now, is that there are certain markets that aren't included, and it's addressing imbalances from where Trump or whoever's in charge of looking at the numbers feels as though there's an imbalance where it's impacting our ability to export.
So I think the issue is that so there's two things going on there. So one, the tariffs are broad and that they're market wide. They might be different from country to country, but they're broad market wide tariffs and not just targeting a particular industry. And then the second,
It's not in all cases. You can't generalize like that.
well,
And
besides
it's a
China, I
fact
think
that-
it is in all cases. I think, and every single tariff that we've talked about for all the markets, it's affecting the entire market. The only exception is, I think on China, we've individualized some markets, but then he keeps going back on it. And then I think for Canada and Mexico, we've exempted USMCA goods and services. But for every other country, I believe it's just a broad, like 15% across the whole market, I think. So is my understanding.
So why do you think he's working on tariffs? What do you
Because I
think
don't
the
think
point
he's
is?
very intelligent. I don't think he knows how to do economic policy. So this is just like a thing he likes, and it gives him a lot of attention.
So
Like for another thing that you brought up, like I don't agree with using tariffs because there's a quote unquote trade imbalance. Like there might be good reasons to protect certain domestic industries. I think a trade imbalance is not one of them. I don't think trade imbalances are necessarily bad for the United States, but for some reason Trump has been able to convince all of us of that.
see, it's difficult not to step on my own foot because I can cite different references, but we don't have references to compare to.
I mean, you can say what you want. I can tango
So-
with whatever you want to talk about. We can talk about it. Yeah.
But it's I would say that the argument for if you don't think raising tariffs on other countries is fair, then is it fair for the other countries to have tariffs higher than what we have on them? Which has been the case. I don't think it's an argument that has been the case for many, if not most, countries that are being
Well, it's not
discussed.
generally the case. I know that Trump said it, but the way that they calculated that was just saying if we have a trade deficit with a country, it means they have tariffs with us, but that's not necessarily true. The formula they used to calculate it was published on the website. It was just basically saying they took the overall trade deficit and they like divided it by the exports, and that's how that's why when people on the news were like, "Why did we put tariff on this island with penguins or whatever?" I think there was some island where there was like one importer that bought a whole bunch of stuff, so we put like 150% tariff on them because they don't like buy stuff from us. But it was just calculated based on that. They didn't have a tariff on it. They didn't buy anything from us. So it was the way they applied the formula was very crude.
But is there your understanding that have any of these other countries have tariffs higher on us than we have had on them?
No, I don't believe so.
All right, that's exactly the opposite of any information I've ever heard on the topic. I haven't even heard any Democrats debate otherwise, so I'm not sure where you're getting that information. But I guess we can't discuss that then. We have no information to compare.
I mean, I feel like if other countries had all these massive tariffs on us, I feel like we would have been talking about it sometime in the past few decades, or Trump would have talked about it in his first term at least, but he only brought this up for some reason in his second term. Why do you think that is?
That's not true, because he had discussed tariffs very, very strongly regarding China.
Correct, but China, that was because of China has been an economic threat, and they engage in kind of like bad economic practices or harmful ones towards us, but we've been talking about China for decades, right? But tariffs across the entirety of the world, Trump only brought that up in his second term. I'm curious why you think that is.
He did bring it up his first term. His momentum was only so strong in his first term. I think even by his own admission, he wanted to win, but he was somewhat surprised he did. He wanted to work with the government in place, and I think most of us were surprised by how much resistance there was to even just doing daily obligations in support of his administration, let alone any progress. And this term, he has a significant amount more of momentum. The momentum is so much stronger. He is able to work on the things that he was unable to previously. So I don't think it's that he didn't want to or he didn't try. It's that he didn't have the momentum or the ability, in Congress and other courts had him in legal deliberations constantly. So, no.
Okay.
Okay. Well, hello, Steven. Nice to meet you. We're talking about Trump's tariffs today, and you've expressed that you don't think they're that great or what he's done. And I want to say
catastrophic, but yeah.
I want to say he's done really good, and I'll tell you why. I think he should even raise the tariffs more, not just on the other countries on the earth, but especially the people that are going to be our enemies for the next world war that's coming up, which has already started. I'll talk about that a little later, but what I think one of the best reasons for Trump to raise tariffs even higher than they are now is because there's so many illegal immigrants coming here, being led into the country, and of course they're having babies, right? And those babies need to be fed. So I think instead of just like punishing the citizens of the country, right, by raising taxes on them, I think it's a much better idea to sort of get money from a different source other than the United States taxpayer to help with this problem that we have of this influx of illegal immigration through that open border, which is another thing Trump did good to at least address the idea that it's sensitive, like it's a danger to have it, especially with this coming world war, how there's fentanyl coming through that open border, and which is coming from China. I don't know if you guys have information about that, but it's being produced in China and it's coming north of the border through Mexico with the cartels. Now, if they're doing that, and since we haven't gotten to a hot war with them yet, the best thing to do is get as much money as we can through tariffs, which would be legal and not so much aggressive in the sense of like a hot war. And I think, yes, I think Trump is doing a great job what he's doing with what his opposition is. And just for basically those two reasons which kind of connect, that, yes, there's a huge problem with illegal immigration. And
let's give Steven a chance.
Okay.
Well, yeah, okay, so I guess just on the I guess on one of these, when we say tariff, are we still under the impression that the other country pays the tariff and not the American consumer?
I think the people have lied about that for so long that people are just starting to become aware of it, and I think people probably lie too.
Well, so like, where do you think like tariffs are collected from?
Well, exactly like I just said, get it from these countries. They want to make deals with the United States, China. They're a massive producer with all those coal power plants that they're able to produce a lot cheaply, and they need a market for that.
Well, sure. I mean, they have the entire rest of the world, not just the United States.
Well, the rest of the this earth does not have the economy like the United States.
The rest of the earth has a far bigger
to
economy than
purchase
the
them.
entirety of the United States. Right?
Pardon me?
The rest of the world combined has a larger economy than the United States.
Oh,
right?
so that's what you're saying. So I guess you're proving my point then. If the rest of the economy is bigger than the United States, then yeah, we should get as much from them as we can.
Well, I guess, but what I'm saying is that like if there's a tariff that we enact against another country, a tariff is something that a consumer in the United States pays when they import something. That's an import tax.
I don't think Americans should pay more. I think we should pay less.
But that's what a tariff is.
No, I like I just said, we shouldn't pay more.
But
we
that-
should
but a
get
tariff-
more money from the other people.
A tariff
Because
is, but
the
a
United
tariff is
States
an import tax, right?
Excuse me?
A tariff is an import tax. Like all the money collected from tariffs is just more taxes that
Yeah,
are paid
that's
for
why
by
they
Americans.
need to work these deals out better so
You
that
can't-
the United States taxpayer isn't covering the burden for all this humanitarian efforts that are
Humanitarian
taking
efforts
place.
don't have anything to do with tariffs. Tariffs are just when you
Talk
import
about the
goods.
illegal immigrants that people are like okay with, you know, like
So that's
how
fine.
it's okay to bring them here. And
Immigration is
this idea,
a separate-
listen, this
separate-
idea that's okay to make other countries better before making our country better.
Do you think there are
that's
other
the whole
countries that
thing
are there
about
other countries that
America first.
Are there other countries that are better than America right now?
I didn't say that they were better.
Okay,
I said
agree.
America's the best country. We're
agree.
in charge. We're the leader. And there's a lot going on. So
Sure.
yes, of course, like the Godfather, they got to pay tribute to the Godfather.
But the
they got to
people paying
kiss the
tribute-
rings.
Do you understand that tariffs are an import tax?
Yeah, I understand that. So when China wants to sell their products here, they should not be as expensive as they want it. It should be as inexpensive as we want
But
it to
tariffs are
be.
going to make it more expensive.
Excuse me?
Tariff will make it more expensive.
That's an assumption.
well, no, that's a factual reality.
Well,
If they
it's,
sell
once
something for
again, it's
100
an assumption that you're thinking if we do this, it'll go one way. I'm saying no. Americans should pay less. The taxpayers should pay less. The tariffs that we charge, say China to do business here, any country, India, Italy, anything, Iran. Yeah, they got to pay more. You know, they want to
If
do
it
business
comes
here.
out in a year or two that we're paying more for things as a result of tariffs, would that make you change your mind on tariffs?
I still think that Americans should pay less and other countries should pay more. So they've discussed earlier how the numbers can be fudged. And, you know, there's that famous book, How to Lie with Numbers. So the specific numbers people could lie about. You know,
Yeah,
I've
but you'll see it
debated
at the
plenty
store.
of
I mean, there are-
Globers. I know that people
There are people now that are
lie
looking
with
at their
numbers, right?
the stuff that they're paying for, and it is starting to go up. There are people that are having to put 10, 15% additional charges to cover the tariffs.
That's one way to motivate the American manufacturing to increase. Like, so if you're saying China, they want to charge us more for their products, well, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't be importing their products, and it should say made in USA instead of made in China.
Sure, but the made in USA stuff is going to cost more money.
Well, that'll be jobs for Americans, right?
the expense for all of the consumers,
that's
right?
taxable income that will stay in the country.
At the expense of the entire American economy, right? We're going to have to pay more for everything.
So what do you think is the bad thing, that people get higher wages? You think that's a bad thing, that people are going to get higher wages because it's not going to be made in China anymore?
I don't think the higher wages are going to matter when everything else is more expensive than
You
your
don't
wages
think the
have grown.
higher wage is going to matter?
Not when everything else becomes more expensive, no.
That's why it needs to be made in America.
It's going to be more expensive if it's made in America.
Well, I mean, once again, that's an assumption. I'm operating more on like the principle. Yeah,
the principle also doesn't make any
we
sense.
should
The
have made
principle-
in USA. We should have more manufacturing. We should not outsource our manufacturing for anything to other countries.
So should we make every single thing that we consume in the United States?
I think that would be a perfect idea. I think the North America and South America are big enough and work well enough together that we could just say peace out, rest of the earth, and just be solid North and South America.
So what part of our economy we take workers from to start manufacturing fabrics and textiles?
That's a great idea. You're saying where are the workers going to come from?
Yeah.
All these people that are just hanging out, no job, getting unemployment, everything. You know, every city you see people just hanging out. Give them a job. You
So
know,
when
they'll
Trump
be
says
at
right
that
now that
time.
the-
There'll
so-
be a robot. It'll be like artificial intelligence. You know, it'll be like computers and robotics. And yes, people will be able to get simple jobs. And so, yeah, to answer your question, where is that labor force going to come from? It's going to come from the United States.
So it's absolutely not going to come from the United States. We absolutely
Well,
don't have enough workers to cover for all of the
well,
imports
that's
that we do from other
assumption.
markets. It's not an assumption; it's reality. The unemployment is low enough that we don't have all of these
right
extra
now,
workers.
we have
And the fact of the
these
matter is
bad
that the
deals
biggest
with China,
you say bad
right?
deals, but the most important places that America is making progress in right now are fields like artificial intelligence. I don't know why we would take from that to mine coal or to manufacture textiles.
Well, the AI would be able to do it effortlessly without even having to.
If the AI
worry
could do it
about
effortlessly, why isn't the AI doing it now?
It takes time. People are uncomfortable with it. It needs to be more or less rolled out in a major way. And I do think one thing about that, people need to become more comfortable with AI.
So wouldn't it be better to roll that out then by having people continue to focus on that research and then just import cheap stuff from other countries until we figure out how to AI it?
I think the best way to be to just start American manufacturing utilizing artificial intelligence and advanced robotics as soon as possible.
Sure.
And get Americans trained in how to write code, how to interact. And every menial job, it won't even be like a human making like the specific logistical decisions.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. But then I feel like it would make sense to just import the stuff from other countries and let them deal with the manufacturing while we do the research and innovation in AI.
I could agree with you to a certain extent as long as Americans pay less and other countries pay more.
Sure, the way that we pay less is by importing it. That's why we import it, because it's cheaper.
Well, that's the immediate present. Yeah, that's why I'm saying they can make the changes now to increase how much more we get from other countries with these bad deals that are taking place and make better deals so that the American taxpayer pays less, not more.
I don't think you can just make a deal to pay less. Unless when people start throwing out tariffs,
That's
everything
why we
is
have
gonna,
President Trump, right,
Yeah,
guys?
and nothing
That's
has
why we
gotten-
have President Trump.
Yeah, but he hasn't made anything cheaper yet.
Well, in a way, you're right, because the prices they have just been steadily going up through every presidency that I've seen in my life. But that's the point. I voted for Trump, 3 times? He won 3 times because he's saying the things that are true to me, that America should be first. If we are Americans, like, I don't know if you're Canadian or something, you're American?
Very American.
You're American? What do you want, like, some other country to be doing better? Do you want America
I don't think
to
any
be
other country
servicing
is
them
doing better. I think America is doing the best right now. I don't think other countries are doing better than us. I think there's a bad assumption that every game is zero sum, and if somebody else is winning, that we're losing. But when you go to the store and you give them $10 for, I don't know, for whatever you buy, you're both winning in that transaction. You want the thing more than they want the thing, and they
yeah.
want the $10 more than.
You mean like if we have allies, right? If we have allies. Good one. Good, Steven.
Okay, so just to kind of reset, I actually agree with you more on tariffs. They are, like all taxes, ultimately paid by the consumer. You seem to have more of a libertarian stance on tariffs and kind of like a free trade. What do you think about the concept of that Scott Bessent has shared so often, that tariffs are actually a tool being used by the Trump administration to pursue free trade outcomes? Do you think that there's a utility in that?
I don't think the current administration believes in free trade. I don't think very many people right now, unfortunately, in the United States believe in free trade.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I think that the underlying assumption right now, and I think we've heard it even a little bit today, is people very much believe in a kind of like a fixed pie economically, that if one person is winning, another person is losing.
Zero sum, yeah.
Yeah. And so if people want to talk about tariffs being used as a tool to pursue something, I mean, one, I would ask, what have we gotten from it? And then 2, I would say, we're the United States of America. We don't need to use tariffs to pursue a thing. We can just have a conversation and figure that out.
Well, but I just find it interesting that a lot of Democrats will. By the way, one thing I love about the tariff thing is that Democrats have suddenly become super libertarian. Like, suddenly they don't want any taxes, and I think that's great. I wish they had that same energy toward corporate taxes. I find it interesting that they want to increase corporate taxes, which, as you know, is ultimately paid by who? By workers, by people as well. It's not paid ultimately by corporations. There's different studies that look at that. Same grouping of studies that say that 90% of tariffs are paid by consumers, like you've said. But when we look at the actual outcomes, we do see that tariffs, especially in the case of European Union, I think Japan, Korea, they've allowed more access to markets. They've reduced regulatory. Like, are you familiar with the non-tariff barriers? Regulatory parity, market access, licensing,
So non-tariff barriers,
quotas.
it's not even we can't even bring that up because we haven't even begun those discussions. And honestly, I think that's where we absolutely have not.
Yes, we did.
Absolutely not.
Prime
I
example
read
is
the
like
stories. The European Union, we've got like kind of these implicit agreements, but there is no comprehensive trade framework that's been set out yet.
Well, but it's clear to me that that's what they're trying to work on. Like you look at the situation with Tesla, right? That the European Union has certain regulatory barriers that doesn't allow Tesla to sell cars in many countries there. So, if those are being lifted, same with meat. Sure, they can have regulations on like quality. That's fine. But I think there is some regulations that do hurt American companies.
There can be. I mean, we had the WTO for that if we wanted to pursue that. We also can just engage in trade talks and also work on bringing those down. Again, the United States is the
tariffs is a tool to apply pressure to actually get those things
don't have
done.
to.
We do have to. That's what we've been seeing.
We see our wonderful host over here, James. I don't know if he's been on camera before, okay? My guess is James is about 6'4", looks like he can bench 315 in his sleep.
For sure.
Okay? This is a big guy.
Yeah.
Imagine James and I are going to have a one-on-one convo later because James caught me messing around with his wife. I don't know if he's married or husband or non-binary partner, whoever, right?
Yeah, sure.
If James were to tell you, I think I'm going to bring a gun so that I can intimidate Steven, I imagine that we would say to James, you look like you could literally punch kill him.
Right, but
so
you're talking-
that's like the
you're
idea
talking
that.
about-
So wait, I'm just saying that the United States, we have such a huge economy. What country is it that we're incapable of
here's the problem.
negotiating
You're
with without?
conflating brute force with just incentives. When you mentioned this chips and science, this is a perfect example. Actually, you mentioned chips and science earlier. Do you know what that legislation was before it was chips and science? Under the Trump administration, it was called the Endless Frontier Act, and that was to provide innovation. It was only chips and science was bipartisan. I think it was Schumer, and I forgot who the Republican individuals were, but that was only economically viable because of the tariffs that Trump had put on China to bring manufacturing back here. A lot of people don't even recognize that, but there has been a precedent for setting incentives using tariffs as an economic tool to set the correct incentives to align with American interests. Not only economically, by the way, but also geopolitically. When we see it with immigration, I don't want to talk about immigration right now, but we have seen committals from both Canada and Mexico on that stuff. Whether or not it's been affected, that's a totally different story. But I think there is a utility to tariffs, and I don't think I think you're kind of overstating how catastrophic they've been. There's really no proof that they've been
There's plenty of proof. They are catastrophic. And there's everything about this argument is completely and totally wrong. We have the ability to go to any country that we want and negotiate any deal we want. That's why Trump renegotiated NAFTA to the US, Mexico, Canada trade agreement. There was no massive tariffing on both sides in order to bring them to the table. We do not need massive tariffs to bring anybody to the table. We're the United States of America. We can bring anybody to the table by just talking to them. So the idea that
how has that worked the last 20 years? How has that worked the last
pretty
2
well?
decades?
We tend to win most of our cases we bring to the World Trade Organization. We have trade deals with every country on the planet, basically.
What you see is massive IP theft from China, from places like China.
But IP theft can't be.
You see massive drug problems coming on.
IP theft can't be fixed by just broad tariffs.
If you apply pressure to the governments that have that are overseeing their citizens, especially like a totalitarian country like China, there are outcomes that are measurable.
In 4 years, if the issues with China related to IP theft or other comparative advantages aren't eliminated or at least severely reduced, would you think that this was a mistake by Trump to pursue this?
I would say, look, I'm generally, in my libertarian utopian, there's no tariffs. I agree with you on that.
No, I'm not asking. I'm saying that if in 4 years we don't make significant progress with China, would you say this was a failure? We've blown up our trade relations with the rest of the world.
It depends on the metrics that you'd have to consider, right? Like, what do you mean? What would warrant significant progress? Is it on the
some sort of bilateral trade agreement that irons out like our agreements on how intellectual property is to be used, maybe?
Yeah, that could be one. Maybe it could be China not taking over Taiwan. I don't know. There could be I think there's geopolitical. You would agree there's geopolitical utility to tariffs?
No,
really, none whatsoever.
Why? I guess it depends on how you measure utility. There's utility in a bomb. I mean,
the utility of pressuring countries so that we get America first geopolitical outcomes. No, really.
That's why none have happened yet, even though we were promised 90 deals in 90 days and we have 0 deals
No, I wouldn't say zero. I wouldn't say zero deals. We've gotten massive investments from Taiwan. Actually, Taiwan
we've been always getting investments. That's just a thing. It's a thing that happens. The U.S. economy, capex is a thing that's always happening. FDI is always happening.
So you think the Stargate thing is that tariffs hadn't play no effect into Stargate?
What is the Stargate thing?
The Stargate initiative is all the different. It's a list of different companies. I have it on my phone. I just forgot them off the top of my head, but that have made. I think it leads up to like hundreds of billions, if not over $1 trillion of investments in the U.S. Economy and domestic economy.
My guess is it's always happening. Like,
oh, really?
FDI is always. Other people are always investing in the United States. Yes, we have a lot of foreign investment here.
Sure, but there's like. I just find it interesting that you bring up something like the chips and science, which is only economically viable because of tariffs.
That's not true.
It
It's
is-
economically
it is
viable
true.
because
It
it's
is true.
subsidiary by the government,
It's subsidized by which government?
by the United States government.
China subsidized. The thing is that other countries also subsidize.
No, they
So
don't. Do they? How?
Do you think? What do you mean? Governments subsidize products all the time so that they
Our
get a favor-
government, the CHIPS Act was a $500 billion bill where the
Yep.
money was apportioned from the U.S. budget.
Right, but the manufacturing, what the CHIPS Act did, one of the most notable parts of the CHIPS Act was to bring manufacturing back to the States. And that was only economically possible because of the tariffs, because it was more expensive at that point to do business in China and other places because of
I
tariffs.
think it had more to do with the fact that there was a massive government subsidy that financially incentivized you to make it in the United States.
I mean, both can
It
be
is.
true.
It can be both a little
true.
bit, yeah.
Both can be true.
But the CHIPS Act can be hyper targeted to incentivizing domestic manufacturing without necessarily blowing up a relationship with the rest of the world and without having to do a broad tariff that hurts the entire U.S. market.
I just think that when you frame it as catastrophic, can I paint a picture real quick? Actually, let me just 30 seconds to paint a picture, because you said earlier to one of the other contestants that the domestic policy doesn't match the tariff policy. I actually completely disagree with that. If we imagine 3 levers, right, and 2 of them are domestic policy, we have corporate tax and federal income tax, and then one is international, being the tariff. If we reduce the levers on the domestic taxes and we increase tariff, politically, it's actually a huge win. And I think this is the genius of the Trump administration, is that the domestic policy is extremely hard to change. You have to have approval by the Senate. You have to have a bill. It takes years to change. Tariffs, Trump changes it on a fly.
So that's not supposed to be the way that it works. Tariffs are
But that
supposed
is-
to be
but-
changed by
but
Congress.
do you acknowledge that is the way that it works?
Because he's abusing illegally the system
Sure,
right now, yes.
but that is the way that it works. Therefore, you can see that the tariff, we might have 50% tariffs on Brazil, which, by the way, is only on certain. There's a bunch of exemptions too there, but those can be turned off on a whim. Same with other countries.
Yeah, but we don't want an economic policy that the lead executive, that the president can turn on and off whenever he wants. Do you understand how catastrophic that is?
It's in pursuit of our America's interests.
But
which
it's not. But we
there's
don't know.
a-
It's going to be a pursuit of whoever's in office at that particular point in time.
But who's representing America? What is Trump?
No,
Trump
he
is
can't
the
even.
chief
He's a lame
executive.
duck president right now. He can't be elected again. Why do we know he's representing
Well,
America?
I mean, obviously Trump himself can't be elected again, but it
so
is the
why would
chief
we
exe-
trust him with the levers on our
Well, because we
economy?
voted for him. He's the chief executive, right?
We
It's
didn't
his
vote
call.
for to give him unilateral control of the
That is-
economy.
but that is just how the mechanic currently works.
because he's breaking the law. Yes,
He is not breaking
He's
the
breaking
law.
the law. Of
What
course.
law is he breaking?
The thing that allows him to do that is there's an Emergency Powers Act. I believe it's either the Tariff or the Trade Emergency Powers Act
So
by
what is-
Congress
okay.
that allows him to declare a national emergency, which gives him the ability to do tariffs unilaterally. He declared that our trade deficits were national emergencies and that's where he gets the power to tariff the rest of the world. Obviously, that's not the way that law was
Look,
intended to work.
we can argue about whether or not
Do you
he's in
think
his
that
right
the
as
president of the United States should be able to unilaterally do economic policy?
maybe not. Well,
Maybe not. We don't have a strong opinion?
Fiscal policy, I think that they have a huge
No,
they have a
fiscal
huge-
comes from the budget set by
executive.
Congress. No, it's by Congress.
Well, yeah, but it's also the executive.
No, it's by Congress. It's by Congress. We wouldn't want the president to have unilateral
Look,
control over.
That's a totally different debate, and maybe things will change in the future. But the fact of the matter is that I'm in favor of the lower taxes.
Okay.
That's all.